Welcome. We often hear that Islam is a religion of perfect freedom, a faith born of personal conviction, a spiritual home chosen of your own free will. But what exactly does that mean in practice? Let's explore. Understanding Islam's stance on freedom begins with recognizing its core principle. The relationship between the Creator and the individual is built on intentional acceptance. Islam emphasizes that faith must stem from personal conviction, not inherited or forced compliance. This faith is meant to be a conscious, heartfelt choice made by the individual. The foundation for this freedom is explicitly stated in the Quran, in chapter 2, verse 256. There shall be no compulsion in acceptance of the religion. This verse unequivocally establishes freedom of belief. This concept ensures the freedom of personal conviction, meaning no one can force you to adopt or maintain the Islamic faith. It is a decision that rests solely on the individual's conscience. Islam places a high value on the human intellect and encourages deep reflection and seeking truth. Faith is seen as an informed conclusion, not blind adherence. Because faith must be genuine to be accepted by God, any faith acquired through coercion is meaningless. The sincerity of the heart and mind is paramount. When we speak of Islam as a spiritual home that you choose, we're talking about a conscious embrace of a belief system and a way of life. The journey to accepting Islam is highly individual and voluntary. It is a realization of truth and a decision to live by the guidance found in the Quran and the Sunnah. Once the faith is freely chosen, it naturally entails commitment to the Sharia, the Islamic legal and moral system. This commitment is the practical expression of that free choice. Therefore, the concept of perfect freedom in Islam is not freedom from moral accountability, but freedom of conscience, the non-negotiable right to choose your faith. In summary, Islam is founded on the principle of free will. It requires personal conviction, is safeguarded by the divine command, no compulsion in religion, and offers a freely chosen spiritual home and commitment. To further understand these principles, we encourage you to consult reliable Islamic resources and scholars. Thank you for seeking clarity on this important topic. We begin by exploring a powerful narrative in Islamic history, the idea of a golden era of justice during the early days of Islam.
This period is often romanticized as a time when Islamic principles were perfectly implemented, establishing a benchmark for righteousness and societal structure. The prevailing narrative tells us that the initial years of Islam were marked by unparalleled justice and moral clarity, setting a high standard for all future Muslim societies. Central to this era are the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, known as the Sahaba, the direct followers who lived and learned alongside him. The Sahaba are often viewed as the ideal Muslims, embodying the deepest commitment and purity of faith. They are considered the perfect models of righteous living. We are consistently taught that these men and women were the most righteous individuals to ever live, their characters unblemished and their devotion unmatched. Their role extended beyond personal piety. The Sahaba are lauded as the perfect implementers of the Quran, translating divine law into daily life and governance. Their direct connection to the Prophet ﷺ is believed to have granted them a uniquely profound understanding of his message. The general belief is that the Sahaba grasped the core and nuances of the Prophet's teachings better than any generation that followed or preceded them. This superior understanding carries significant weight, influencing how later Muslims interpret scripture and tradition, often deferring to the practices of the Sahaba. The narrative emphasizes that the early Islamic community prioritized justice, establishing legal and moral frameworks rooted in divine guidance. The golden era of justice is characterized by principles of equality, accountability, and the application of law without fear or favor, regardless of social standing. These high concepts of justice were said to have fundamentally shaped the structure of early Islamic governance and daily societal interactions. In conclusion, this foundational period serves as a powerful historical reference, defining ideal conduct and governance within the Islamic faith. The perception of the Sahaba as righteous role models and early Islam as a golden era continues to influence jurisprudence, ethics, and historical understanding for Muslims worldwide. This foundational period remains critical to understanding the history and enduring values of Islamic civilization. Welcome to a crucial conversation about religious freedom and the shadow of apostasy laws in the modern Muslim world. Today we confront a difficult truth. We are often told by modern apologists that ancient laws of the desert were just a product of their time, and that today, Islam is perfectly compatible with absolute religious freedom. But if leaving Islam is truly a free choice, why does the ghost of the Ridda Wars still haunt the legal codes of modern Islamic nations today? The legal codes of many modern Islamic nations are still stained with the ink of apostasy laws, contradicting claims of absolute religious freedom. Let's fast forward from the year 632 AD to a case study in 1985, Mahmud Muhammad Taha, a 76-year-old engineer in Sudan. Taha was a religious thinker who proposed a reformist interpretation that the peaceful Meccan verses of the Quran should guide modern society, not the harsh, violent Medinan verses. How did the Islamic State respond to this exercise in, quote, freedom of thought? They dragged this 76-year-old man into a Sharia court, convicted him of ridda, apostasy, and executed him for thinking differently. 5 years later, in Iran in 1990, we see another case, Hossein Soodmand. Soodmand decided Islam was no longer his spiritual path. He converted to Christianity and tended to his small flock, simply changing his mind and his heart. Under Iran's Sharia-based legal system, he was arrested, explicitly charged with leaving Islam, and executed by hanging, dead, for choosing a different altar to pray at. These are not isolated historical incidents. This is the modern reality of apostasy laws. Today, right now, leaving Islam remains legally punishable by death in multiple nations whose constitutions are rooted in Sharia. In places like Pakistan, if the state doesn't execute you for blasphemy or apostasy, a vigilante mob will gladly do it for them in the streets, celebrated as heroes for protecting the faith. When confronted with this reality, the debate opponent will try a sleight of hand, claiming the death penalty is only for treason, for the apostate who joins an enemy army. But I ask you to look at the victims. Was an elderly Sudanese engineer an invading army? Was a Christian pastor in Iran an enemy combatant? No. More importantly, look at the Arabic text they are trying to hide. Man baddala dinahu faqtuluh. Translation: whoever changes his religion, kill him. The Prophet of Islam did not say whoever changes his religion and takes up arms. The crime, in the eyes of classical Sharia, is the departure itself. Your soul is state property. They want to claim the moral high ground of freedom while tethering themselves to a law code of captivity. I leave you with this to ponder. If a religion holds the undeniable absolute truth of the universe, why does it need a death penalty to keep its followers from leaving? Truth does not need a sword to protect it from scrutiny. If the only thing keeping millions inside of faith is the fear of a hangman's noose or the wrath of a mob, then is it truly a community of believers, or is it simply a community of hostages? Think about it.